Okay, picking up where we left off, we learned how to use the slide sort view to add a slide, duplicate one, rearrange it, and delete it in different ways. You can right-click to delete, or you can just hit the. And I can hold the Control key down on my keyboard and click on multiple ones of these guys, and click them all. Right, that's one way of doing it. And then after I've got them all selected, I could just hit the delete key or something. Okay. Next, we're going to show you. This is the view when you're creating the slides, but this is not the view that's going to happen when you present them, right? It's not going to have all this stuff. So I'm going to switch over to the presentation view, and to me, the easiest way of doing that, I mean, there is a view over here where you can go through, and here's the normal view. The slide sorter view just takes this piece right here and makes it full screen so you can see what's going on. That's all. That's all it does. There's one for doing note pages where you can actually collect, add notes to your stuff. And again, this might be like the printed thing that you have in your hand when you give the presentation, what it is you're going to say, things of that nature. Okay. But that's not exactly what you were going to be doing if you were presenting this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the normal view. And down here at the bottom, it talks about this is normal. This is slide sorter. This is the reading view. And then they have another one here. Another one that says slideshow, which is the traditional technique that you would use to show one of these things. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit this little button. Doink, and it goes full screen. Okay. And now I can use my mouse. You can use the page up and page down key. Okay. Isn't that pretty cool? Okay, I only got 2 slides now. So page down and page up, or you can just use your mouse and click. If you don't, you can kind of sort of use the mouse to point things out in a presentation, but if you click accidentally on the screen, it's going to immediately pop to the next slide. So most people don't. See how there's no cursor view? Now if I move the mouse, the cursor will appear somewhere there. So most people just kind of click. Okay. So clicking on the mouse advances to the next slide, and I personally don't like to bellow at somebody who's operating at the slides. I've seen, haven't you seen this? Where they'll say, "Next slide, please," and so they have some poor minimum wage person sitting back in the back of the room operating the projectors, and he doesn't have a clue what the third quarter annual report's about. He's just going to the next slide. I like to do it myself. I have a little handheld doodad. It looks like sort of like a mouse. It plugs into the computer so I can walk around the room. I can be standing in front of them, and it's like a little trigger. I pull a little trigger and it goes to the next slide. Kind of cool. Okay. There's some cool ways. I'm gonna unhide this guy. So now I have 3 slides again. So a lot of people think that when you go from one slide to the next, that there's a kind of a jarring kind of a thing. And so wouldn't it be kind of cool if you could have some sort of a transition between slides? Now, a lot of this is just pure aesthetics and has nothing to do with presentation. I particularly don't like transitions, but it's something that you may have to learn. So I'm going to go to the Transitions tab here. It talks about transitions to this slide. So I'm here on this slide, and right now I have no transitions when going to this slide. But I could have a thing called fade. So I'm just going to say hit fade button. And it kind of wasn't that pretty cool? Let's do that again. I'm going to go to this top. I'm going to pop on over to slideshow. Now watch what happens when I hit the mouse to go to the other slide. Instead of just having this jarring, bam, next slide, it goes whoop, and fades in. Isn't that pretty cool? Now, some people like this. Me, maybe I'm just not very artistic. So, and to get out of this view, I use the escape key. So, I'm done with this and I want to go back to editing again. I just hit the escape key on the keyboard and I'm back to where I was. And there's all different kinds. I mean, there's lots and lots of these guys. I mean, some of these are ridiculous. Let me try this one. I mean, come on. Really? Really? Now, come on. Isn't that a little too much? Okay. So, yeah, you got all sorts of cool stuff that you can do. Let's go back to the backstage view. So I'm going to go back to here and talk about the properties. So properties are kind of cool. a lot of times this is very important for a slide presentation because you're storing a slide presentation out of some network drive. They want to know who created it and when it was created and like the date of the data that was used in the report. You know, not the date that it was presented or the date that the PowerPoint presentation was created. They really want to know the date where the data came from. So this was last June data, for example. So they want all sorts of information in here. And so, you know, you put in the author and the title and the subject and all sorts of keywords and things of that nature and comments in here. So a lot of people spend time making this make sense so that other people could use your slide presentation and present the thing themselves. Kind of cool. I'll make the little X here. Don't make that go away. Cool. So once again, to start a slideshow, so I usually launch this guy. And yeah, I could go all the way to here like before, but there is a thing here called slideshow. And I could start from the beginning, which is typically what I want to do. I could start from whatever the current slide is, which is current slide is 2. That works. I can set it up so that I can record the entire thing. That's pretty neat. I can set it up so that it automatically transitions to the next slide without me clicking anything. Wow. So I don't have... If you had it timed out exactly right, then you don't have to have an extra person, you know, perhaps bellowing at the corner, next slide, please, you know, because you've kind of already got it figured out. So it automatically transitions to the next slide automatically. Kind of cool. So from the beginning is typically what you want. So I'm going to do that one. I'm going to hit the button. And oh, God. That is probably the worst slide transition I've ever seen. In fact, if anything, everyone would be going, oh, God, do that again. You know, they'll have completely, I would have lost the audience, okay? Instead of talking about the third quarter annual report or whatever this presentation is about, they're all talking about that dang honeycomb slide. Okay. So again, manually moving through the slides. But let's say, for example, that somebody says, wait, go back. Okay. Remember now, if I hit the normal mouse button, all it's going to do is just pop to the next slide. So what happens if I hit the left mouse button somewhere in here? I get a cool little menu. And so I can say previous. Now, you could, oh God, you could have just hit the page up key, right? So page up, page down, goes forward, backwards, forwards, backwards. But if all you have is a mouse, you know, you're far away from the keyboard and you just have the mouse, then you just do a right click. And the right click says, you know, I could go to slide number 4. I could do whatever. Some cool stuff. And then, of course, you can stop the whole thing here by just saying boink, and, you know, you're back. Okay. I don't particularly like transitions, but hey, what the heck. All right, so we talked about moving through the slide. Now let's talk about printing this thing. So I'm going to go back to the backstage. And so it's time for me to print this, guys. I will tell you, when I print these guys, I typically do not print full size, okay? First of all, it's not that much information on these guys, right? Right? Really? So what I typically do is I go through here and pick, instead of full page, 1 slide per page, I'll either pick 2 slides per page, which means it fits like that, or 6 slides per page. I kind of like the 6 guys. Okay. Now, as I mentioned to you before, if you can print this with 6 slides on a page and still read the text, okay, then you've probably picked the right font size. That's pretty cool. Now, I do this because, first of all, when I'm giving a presentation, I never give them the slides in advance, okay? You know, some people, they'll print the slides and they'll have them sitting out at the table, the conference room table, so people come in and they'll start rifling through the slide presentation before going on. I don't do that. That's too distracting. I don't want them to be paying attention at a piece of paper. I want them to be paying attention to me. I'm the one giving the presentation. So what I do is I have a stack of these things, but I don't give them out during the presentation. I wait till afterwards. And I say, oh, here's a few copies, because I don't print one for everyone. Here's a few copies of the slides, and I print them this size. Okay, cool. That's just me. You don't have to do it that way. So again, I go in here and I go, fine, I want it, you know, full size. Full size, of course, means that the paper will be rotated and it'll all come out like that. By the way, you can configure this to work with a projector that's a normal size, 3:4 aspect ratio projector, or the newer projectors, which are the high def widescreen. When you go in here to build one of these guys, one of the designs is the page setup and the orientation. And of course, the page setup could be, is it on screen? Is your projector a 3:4 projector or not? Or I could, 16:9 or 6:10. Or you could configure it for printing. I mean, that would be one way of doing it. Letter size, all those kinds of things. Okay, so this is kind of cool. So even if I do not have a wide screen on my computer, I can still create a presentation that will display on a wide screen very, very nicely. Okay, that's not the case here, because right now I told it I wanted 3:4 or 4:3. And so when I show this on a wide screen, it's just going to have bars on the edges. And so it's not going to automatically stretch out because it wouldn't know what to do. But if I switch this and hit the button, doink. So even though I don't have a widescreen monitor, I know what it's going to look like when it gets displayed onto a widescreen monitor. So let's hit presentation mode and let's see what this looks like. See, now I got black bars at the top. Hey, you got to have... If you don't have the right stuff, you're either going to get black bars on the side or you're going to get black bars on the top. Now, clearly when you show this on a real widescreen projector, those bars aren't going to be there. All you're going to be able to see is the real thing. And how do I get out of this mode to get back to editing? I hit the escape key. Cool. Alright, let's continue. So basically that's everything you ever wanted to know about the mechanics of doing one of these things. So I've really taught you two things. One is the mechanics of how to use PowerPoint to create slides. That's one thing. We did a little bit of inserting graphics and that kind of stuff, but not much. But, inserting a picture is about the same. Inserting a shape, smart art, or a chart of some sort. Typically, I would have a chart like from an Excel spreadsheet or something. That's a very common thing to put in a presentation, particularly like a third quarter report. Annual report, yeah, you're probably going to have lots and lots of cool charts. And these charts can be, gorgeous charts. I don't have any data up in here, but let me just click on one. And then it says, okay. Now, we haven't talked about Microsoft Excel yet, so I'm just going to table that discussion. In fact, I'm just going to close this guy and bring it back. So there's my cool, well, I've got some text behind it. But there's a, pretty cool. Now, the theme for my particular document picked those colors for me. So even if I went to Microsoft Excel first and picked colors, when I imported it into here, it's going to pick the colors of the theme. So everything remains the same color scheme, which is important to a lot of people. Okay, so one more time. The mechanics of how to do this, that's one thing. But the other is the rules of the game. How do you set up a presentation? What's the purpose of the presentation? How to maintain focus on you, the presenter, rather than the goofy piece of paper in their hand or the big screen on the wall. I don't want them to be, glued to the screen. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So make this a useful tool for you, the presenter. Okay, that's what you're designed to do. And I will tell you, when I'm creating presentations for myself to give, I find that rather easy because, first of all, it helps me kind of rehearse. As I'm building the slides, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. Makes sense, right? But if my boss comes to me and says, build me a PowerPoint presentation about this topic, I go, oh, man. Because now, for this to work, I basically have to build a presentation and give the presentation to this person. Give it to my boss so he can hear what I said, so it all makes sense. So making presentations for other people is rough. Okay, that's everything we need to know about PowerPoint. And this is a good place to stop. So we'll pick this thing up again in some other chapter.